Hey, what's going on, guys? Mike Idle back here again. This time we're on the concourse of Broadbent Arena. Now, one of my favorite things that I did this summer, with a lot of you guys who watched on social media and our different broadcasting platforms, we like to do a pit tour. Now, just like we have an indoor tractor pull, we're going to have an indoor pits right here. All of our vehicles are going to be staged right in here in historic Broadbent Arena. Let's go ahead and come in here, see what our initial impressions are, see what vehicles that we can find, and let's even talk some basics about some difference of classes and specifically what you're going to look at. So if we look around, our first impression right over here, we have the brand new 650 inspired International by the Sheltons that they're going to be debuting. Now, of course, the Sheltons, they were in the noise for a long time, both in mini rods, modified, and drag racing. But the Pro Stock bug, it has bit them, and it has bit them hard recently. So this is actually their number 3 Pro Stock entry that they're going to be taking down. Brand new tractor right here. Now let's flip the script. We talk about what's new, what's shiny, what's experimental. Let's come right over here to probably the most historic vehicle you're going to see at the National Farm Machinery Show, your Grandview Gangsters. Of course, this is Masterson's River Rat. This thing has so much success in Freedom Hall and at the farm show. And let's be honest, this thing has a ton of success everywhere it goes. Of course, they say that this is the house that Masterson's built. This is the tractor that tells us why. As we just go down the line of these beautiful folks, what we're looking at here, these are your 10,000 pound Pro Stocks. Now, when they're inside, they're actually 10,200 pounds because of the smoke tube that they're going to attach up on top. If we look up there, we can see this smoke tube. Hey, diesel smoke, that's got to escape the venue somewhere. It's going to go through that vacuum tube and be deposited at a different location. Interesting little bit, first pull that was ever at the farm show, 1969, no smoke tube. So I don't know if there were mosquitoes up in the top row, but there sure weren't any by the time that show was done. Of course, now we're on the smoke tube. Another beautiful, beautiful vehicle right here. Of course, this is the Bootlegger. Bootlegger went away for a couple years, came back last year. This is the new debuted Pro Stock that they took out last year. This is just about as cool looking as it gets. Now, while the hood's up, I think we should go ahead and talk about some things right here. We're going to talk about our different family of Pro Stock vehicles. At the other end of the arena, we've got our Super Farms. Across from me, we have our limited Pro Stocks. Well, how do you keep this all straight? What's a Super Farm? What's a limited Pro Stock? What do we mean when we say big pros? Well, your quick and easy answer, look at that right there. I've heard people call these trash can lids before. In the Pro Stock class, you're only going to be running a single turbocharger. But in the Pro Stocks, you can essentially make that charger as big as you can get, 6.5 inches. Seems to be the current limit that we're at. That is the size that you're going to see these guys running. Of course, the turbocharger on this, as every good announcer says, just a big air compressor. But what does that mean? Well, hey, you ever blow on a fire when you're out with your friends and you're trying to stoke that flame? More air, more fuel. More fuel, more bang. Simple as that. You get more air to it, you push more fuel to it, you get more horsepower to it. Sliding back through here, the other interesting thing that we're going to see, it's got the intercooler right here. That intercooler is going to allow that air to come in at an even colder temperature. Colder temperatures, more volatile. Going to have a bigger, more aggressive explosion on these 680 cubic inch Pro Stocks that we're looking around right here. Now, sitting right next to it, okay, if we look right up here, we're going to see a pair of smokestacks coming out of this one. Anytime you see a pair as opposed to one, you know you're not looking at a Pro Stock, you're looking at a Super Stock. This is the Super Rooster right here. This is actually going to run multiple turbochargers under the hood, but a smaller cubic inch. 540 cubic inches is going to be about what this thing is checking in at, but it's going to run 3 or even 4 turbochargers under the hood in a multi-stage turbocharger system. The other big difference between your Pro Stock and your Super Stock, if we slide right down here, anything in the Pro Stock family going to be running these 24 5s on the back, just a little bit skinnier. Now, your old school Super Stock pullers, one of the original classes, they're running the 30.5, the big wide back tires. So really easy to compare right here. You see 2 up on top, Super Stock. You see 1 up on top, more than likely Pro Stock. Skinnier tires going to be to the Pro Stock. 8,000 pounds here, 10,000 pounds on my left-hand side. Not going to be competing against each other. We got the Mettings Pro Stock right here, as well as several good-looking John Deeres. John Deere, kind of your your bread and butter vehicle, we should say, in the Pro Stock class. That 680 cubic inch, really, really comfortable with a big block John Deere. Let's see who else is here and who's going to be hooking over the next couple of days. Brandon Simon's loud and heavy, tough running one right there, needs very little introduction. Julia Ray in the Mac Daddy right back over here. This is one of my favorite tractors when I'm looking at the full pull picks. This tractor right here, really good at winning. Just a couple of seasons ago, rattled off 5 wins in a single season. This is a vehicle that can win at the drop of a hat. Speaking of winning and speaking of picks, make sure you're heading out to fullpull.us or the Full Pull app, where you can put your money where your mouth is and make your picks on all the classes here at the National Farm Machinery Show. Going right down the line here, we're seeing some red ones in this 10,200 pound Pro Stock class as well. But as we transition and we start walking down the line right over here, we're actually going to get into what's called the limited Pro Stock class. Now, my favorite one that I like to use to explain, well, what is a limited Pro Stock class? It looks a lot like those big 10,000 pound Pro Stocks. What's the difference? Well, we take a look at it. We still got these 24.5 tires on the back. Well, it's still got that single smoke tube coming out the top, so we know it's just got a single charger. Most people commonly refer to this class as the 4.1s. You're going to hear them say, oh, the 4.1s are coming up next. Well, what's a 4.1? That refers to the size of the turbocharger. We saw that huge charger over there on the bootlegger machine, upwards of 6.5 inches, 4.1 inches, the limiting factor on these. They also typically come in at 9,500 pounds. They might give them a little bit more for that smoke tube. One we're looking at right here, this is Lane Paulson's Life in the Fast Lane. Now, Lane, he's a rookie here at the farm show. He's a high school student. He's taken a couple of days off of class. Now, if you're going to get out of school, what better way to do it than go down the track? But I will tell you this, watch this young man go down the track several times. He was born to be in the seat of this thing. Do not count him out when you're making your picks this evening. As we jump across the way over here, let's not only shift classes, but let's even shift fuel types. So earlier, we looked at the Super Rooster Super Stock Diesel. But if we point things right over here to our left, we're going to check out a Super Stock on alcohol. Now, of course, this is the extremely armed and dangerous, ran by Team Cheezick, and the Blackburns are going to be piloting this one right here. All right, look at the top. We've got 2 of those exhaust pipes coming out, so we know it's a multi-charger system. No big exhaust tubes on those. No black smoke coming out of this one. See, long ago, someone said, well, what if I take a diesel engine and I put spark plugs in that thing, convert it to methanol? They learn they get a ton of speed out of them. This is where you get your Super Stock alcohol. They're going to be competing against our Super Stock diesels in what we call the duel of the fuels. Brandon Hunt's living a dream right over here. Look up there on top, great example of it. Pair of smokestacks, 2 tubes coming out of that, multi-chargers running on diesel, 8,000 pounds. They are going to run these guys together. Typically in the summer, the diesels have their own class. They run separate from the alcohol burners. Not here at the National Farm Machinery Show. This is the duel of the fuels. We're going alky, we're going diesel. Hey, it's a great way to experience it. What team are you rooting for out there when you're watching these things? All the awesome tractors right through here. But let's get loud, I think. Let's go right down Broadway of Broadbent and let's go see some noise, boys. Super modified 2-wheel drive trucks, an absolute fan favorite class. These are your big wheel standing, wheelie popping trucks. Got the hood up on this one. Let's go ahead and talk about what we're looking at right here. All these are going to have their V8 engines in them. Hemi inspired. These are your Hemi V8s. Running a 1471 supercharger on that. We've talked about turbochargers. This is going to be your supercharger. If you come back right over here, those turbochargers, they're running off of exhaust pressure. These are actually running directly off the crank. You've got your blower belt. The motor is actually, or the throttle, I should say, is going to open up these butterflies on this injector hat. That's going to suck in air. What do we know about air, more fuel, more boom. One of the toughest classes there is to try to compete in out there. These trucks are so hard running, and there's so many of them. If you walk away with a win in a super modified 2-wheel drive truck class, you know you've done something special. Now, one fun thing that we love to look at in this class too is kind of an old school way of doing things. It's called the T-bucket. Okay, these are inspired by what was at one point in time a Ford Model T. Looking at this one right here, this is Dustin Corliss's Texas Bullseye. He pulls for Team Texas Bullwhip Motorsports out of Cat Spring, Texas. He's got his T-bucket right here. A lot of fun as we circle around over here. This is actually going to be Dustin Corliss's final run on this super modified two-wheel drive. This truck is sold. It is spoken for. It is gone. So Dustin, he's taking it down the track one last time, and he told me earlier on in the week, he says, hey, I've got one goal. That's to park it over in the corner, make sure I'm in top 3 so we can pull again on Saturday night. Let's look at the back of it. The other big distinguishing thing or limiting factor when it comes to truck and tractor pulling is not only the weight, not only your forced air system, but this is the business side of things. Take a look right here. This is where they're going to drop that hitch or that weight transfer machine. Now, one thing pullers can use to their advantage is the height of this hitch. Each class is going to have its own hitch limit. With these super modified two-wheel drive trucks, highest hitch limit in all of pulling, up to 30 inches. Just think about the amount of down pressure that's going to put. That's going to help them put traction to the ground. That's going to get those big front tires in the air, get those wheelies that all those fans love to see. Each of these engines in these super modified two-wheel drive trucks producing right at 3,000 horsepower apiece. Now, as we just kind of casually look across the way, I just told you 3,000 horsepower apiece for each one of these blown motors. Well, I'll let you guys look at these super modifieds. You can count how many there are and you can do the math. Just think those guys are 3,000 to 3,500 horsepower apiece, and these guys are running 3 or 4 of them. Down here at the backside of Broadbent, we've got some of our winners, some of our top finishers, our Saturday qualifiers. This is Tim Kane's Red Gambler. Now, here's a great tradition in the sport of truck and tractor pulling. They like to do what's called taking it to the beach. There's the sand pile at the end of the track that's supposed to stop any forward momentum, and if you make it to the sand pile, this is the historic dirt. They leave it out there on the front end. It's good luck, and as you can see last night, Tim Kane, the Red Gambler, he buried it in the sand. He's going to scoop a little of that home and take it home with him as a memento. A lot of good looking equipment. Of course, in truck and tractor pulling, the pits are open to fans. So as we're walking around here, we see a lot of fans. This is something we love about our sport. Pullers are always very receptive to meeting fans. Come out, come talk to them. They want to tell you about what's going on. As we circle around right over here, let's come check in on Bill Casey's tractor. The last class of tractors I want to point out to you guys, still in our Pro Stock family, this is called the Super Farm division. They're also going to be running this evening, very comparable to the limited Pro Stock tractor, 640 cubic inch inline 6 diesel powered engine, 3.6 inch turbocharger. Big cube, small turbo. Well, hey, with that, it's up to this guy right here. Okay, that leaves a lot of room for driver interpretation, and it's going to come down to driver skill. Now, the other things we want to talk about when we compare these Pro Stock family is our rear end. In the limited Pro Stocks and in the Super Farm, these are all what's called ag rear end or cast iron rear end. They do not have what the 10,000 pound Pro Stocks or the Super Stocks have, that's called a component chassis. Component chassis essentially comes out of a semi-truck, much more resistible rear end that's going to handle a lot of that speed and a lot of that torque. We'll do one final lap right here. A lot of awesome equipment. Yet again, we're at the National Farm Machinery Show in Freedom Hall. Folks, make sure that you log on to fullpull.us, download the Full Pull app, come out to Broadbent Arena, or better yet, make your way to Freedom Hall tonight. You can see there's a ton of great iron here. Make your picks, put your money where your mouth is, take your experience to the next level. It's always a great time anytime you're at the pulling track. Thanks for watching, y'all.